Hi, today we're going to be learning about solving quadratic equations involving trinomials. First, I want us to quickly practice factorizing some trinomials just to make sure that you remember how to do it. Here's the first one that you're going to do. I'm going to give you 1 minute to factorize this as far as possible. Okay, so let's go through that and see what you should have got. Right, so we've got a trinomial here, x squared plus 8x minus 20 that we need to factorize. Remember, when you factorize a trinomial, you start off by opening two sets of brackets. And the first term in each bracket is going to be the square root of that x squared, because we don't have a coefficient of the x squared. Remember, we're not doing trinomials yet in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. We're only doing x squared plus bx plus c. When you do start with trinomials where you have ax squared, then it's going to work a little bit differently. But for now, we can just take the square root of the x squared. Then for the second term in each bracket, we're going to be looking at the factors of the 20. So the factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. So we want to find a pair of factors that we can subtract, because this is a minus, to get 8, which is the middle term over here. So I'm going to be using the 2 and 10 as my factor pair, because 10 minus 2 gives me 8. So I'm going to have 2 in my one bracket and 10 in the other bracket. Then once I've got that, I then need to go and sort out my signs. So because this is minus, it means that the signs in the two brackets are going to be different. There's going to be 1 plus and 1 minus. The bigger number, the bigger one of our factors, is going to get the sign of the middle term. So because the middle term is positive, that's going to be a plus, and this bracket is going to get a minus. So that's what you should have got for that trinomial when you factorize. You should have got x minus 2 multiplied by x plus 10. Now we're going to go on to the next question. I'm going to give you 1 minute to factorize this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that quickly. Right, so for this trinomial, we're going to start off in the exact same way as we did for the previous one, by opening two sets of brackets. And then we put the square root of x squared as the first term in each bracket. So I've got x and x. Okay, now we're going to go and look for the factors of 12 over here. So I've got 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Those are my factor pairs. Now, this time, my last term is positive, which means I need to be able to add a factor pair to get the middle term. So the pair that I can add to get 7 is the 3 times 4 over there. So I'm going to put 3 in one bracket and 4 in the other bracket. And then, because the last term is positive, the signs in my two brackets are going to be the same. and they both get the sign of the middle term. So that middle term is negative. So I'm going to have minus signs in both brackets. So that you should have got for that question. Okay, so now let's go on to a question where we're going to actually solve an equation involving a trinomial. Okay, so here's our question over here. We've got x squared plus 4x plus 12 equal to 4 minus 2x. Let's go and have a look at how we would solve this equation. Okay, so this kind of equation, because you can see that it's got an x squared over here and that x squared isn't going to cancel out, this is a quadratic equation. And remember, when we are solving quadratic equations, the first thing we want to do is get everything to one side with 0 on the other side. Normally, we take everything to the left and we have 0 on the right. You can do it the other way around. Depending on the question that you're working with, it might work better to do it the other way around. But at the moment, I'm going to be, most of the time, moving the terms all to the left and having 0 on the right. So when I do it, I want to write it in the form x squared plus bx plus c. So I'm going to have my x squared term first. So x squared is going to stay as it is. It's not going to change. So that's x squared. Then I've got 4x over here. And on the other side, I've got minus 2x. So when I get rid of it on this side, I'm going to add 2x. That means I'm going to add 2x over here. So I'm going to have 4x plus 2x is plus 6x. And then plus 12, I'm going to subtract 4. That's going to be plus 8 equal to 0. So now I've got everything equal to 0. And now it looks like a trinomial. When we started over here, it didn't look like a trinomial because it wasn't yet. But we were able to simplify it to the point where it now is a trinomial on this side equal to 0. So now we can go and do our next step. When we are solving a quadratic equation, once you've got everything on one side equal to 0, our next step is to factorize everything on the side over here. Get it to the point where we have a product of factors equal to 0. And then once we've got a product of factors equal to 0, then we can say that in order for us to get 0 when we multiply things together, at least one of them had to be 0 to start with, which means we can then put each factor equal to 0 and solve for x like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go and factorize this trinomial. So I'm going to open two sets of brackets. That's still equal to 0. The first term in each bracket is going to be the square root of x squared, so that's x. Then my second term in each bracket is going to come from the factors of 8. The factors of 8 are 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. I need the pair that I can add, because that's a plus over there, to get 6, the middle term over here. So I need to have the 2 and the 4. And I'm going to put those in my 2 brackets. So I've got 2 and 4. Now, because the last term over here is positive, the two signs are going to be the same as each other. And they're both going to be the same as the middle sign, the sign of the middle term over here. So it's going to be a plus and a plus. So now I've got x plus 2 times x plus 4 equal to 0. So now, because I've got a factor times a factor equals 0, I can now say that at least one of those factors has to be equal to 0 in order for that to be true. Okay, so now I can say, therefore, x plus 2, the first factor, must be equal to 0, or x plus 4, which is the second factor, must be equal to 0. And now that I've got these two little equations, I can then go and solve for x. So in this equation over here, x is equal to negative 2, or in this equation, x is equal to negative 4. And that's what we get for that equation, that x is negative 2 or x is negative 4. So remember, when you have a quadratic equation, your first step is to move all the terms to one side and have 0 on the other side. You want to try and get it into the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, then once you've done that, you factorize the side where all the terms are, so that you have factors multiplied together equal to 0. Once you've got that, then you take each of the factors and you set them each equal to 0, and then you can solve each of the little equations that result from that. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do to practice this for yourself. Here's the first one you're going to do. I'm going to give you 1 minute to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do over here is look to see that everything is on one side with 0 on the other. And at the moment, it's already been written like that. And the terms on the side are already in the correct order. So we can go straight ahead and do our factorizing. So I'm going to open two sets of brackets. That's still equal to 0 over there. The first term in each bracket is going to be x. Then I'm looking for the factors of 15. So that's going to be 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. And I need to be able to subtract those factors and get 2. So the factor pair that I'm going to choose is the 3 times 5. Okay, so I'm going to put 3 in one bracket and 5 in the other bracket. Then once I've done that, I need to go and sort out my signs. Now because this is a negative over here, I'm going to have different signs in my two brackets, and the bigger number is going to get the sign of the middle term. So the 5 is going to be positive, and then the other bracket is going to get the opposite sign, so it's going to be minus. So I've got x minus 3 times x plus 5 equal to 0. So now I've got a factor times a factor equal to 0. So now I'm going to set each of those factors equal to 0. So I've got, therefore, x minus 3 must be equal to 0, or x plus 5 must be equal to 0 in order for me to be able to multiply those together and get 0. Okay, now I can go and solve each of those separately. So therefore, x is equal to 3, or x is equal to negative 5. And that's what you should have got for question A. Right, let's go on to question B. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute to solve this equation as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. Right, so over here, in this case, it hasn't already been given to me in the form where everything is on the left equal to 0 on the right, or vice versa. So what I need to do is I need to first make sure that I have all my terms on one side. So I'm going to move the 7 away from that side, and so I have 0 on that side and I have all my terms on this side. So I've got x squared. I want my x squared first, then I want my 6x, then I want to have my constant. Now when I get rid of the 7 on the right, I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. So it's going to be negative 7 equal to 0. So now I've got x squared plus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Now I can open my two sets of brackets when I'm going to factorize my trinomial. So I've got over here x as my first term in each bracket. Then I need the factors of 7. Now there are only two factors of 7. So I only have one option here. It's 1 times 7. There's nothing else it can be. And this factor pair does subtract to give me 6. So that's going to work. So I've got 1 and 7. Then the bigger number is going to get the sign of the middle term because that's negative. The two signs are going to be different. So the 7 is going to get the plus over here. And then the other bracket is going to get the opposite sign, which is a minus. So now I can go and say, therefore, x minus 1, which is one of the factors, must be equal to 0, or x plus 7, which is the other factor, must be equal to 0. Okay, so now we can go and solve for x. So therefore, in this equation, x is equal to 1, or in this equation, x is equal to negative 7. So that's what you should have got for question B. Right, let's go on to the next question. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that question. Right, so over here, I've got x squared equal to 2, and then in brackets, 5x minus 12. So the first thing we're going to have to do in this question is multiply out these brackets. Then we can start moving things to the right side and so on. Okay, so over here, I've got x squared equals, now I'm going to multiply the 2 in over here. So 2 times 5x is 10x, and 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. Okay, so now I've got all separate terms. So I can go and move all the terms to one side and put it equal to 0 on the other side. So I'm going to move everything to the left over here. So I've got x squared. Then I want my term with just x. So I'm going to have the 10x. In order to get rid of it on this side, I'm going to subtract 10x on both sides. So I have minus 10x. And then I want my number. So I'm going to add 24 on the side to get rid of it. So I'm going to add 24 on the other side as well. So that's plus 24 equals 0. So now I've got x squared minus 10x plus 24 equals 0. That's the trinomial that I'm going to be working with. So now I'm going to factorize that. So I'll get two sets of brackets equal to 0. So the first term is going to be x in each bracket. Now I'm looking for my factors of 24. So the factors of 24 are going to be 1 and 24, or 2 and 12, or 3 and 8, or 4 and 6. I need to choose a pair that I can add to get 10. So the pair that I'm looking for is the 4 and the 6. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 in one bracket and 6 in the other bracket. And because this is a plus, the two signs are going to be the same as each other, and they're both going to take the sign of the middle term of here. So it's going to be minus and minus. So I've got x minus 4 and x minus 6 as my two factors. Now I can go and solve for x by taking each of those factors, making them equal to 0 separately, and then solving. So I've got over here, therefore, x minus 4 equals 0, or x minus 6 equals 0. And then I can solve for x in each of these. So that gives me x equals 4, or x equals 6. So that's what you should have got for question C. Right, let's go on to question D. I'm going to give you 1 minute to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that and see what you should have got. Right, so over here, I've got x squared plus 10x plus 10 equal to 3x. Now, don't be fooled. This already looks like a trinomial over here, but it's not equal to 0. So I have to get rid of the 3x on this side so that I have 0. So I'm going to be changing this trinomial over here because I need to include the 3x in that over there. So I have x squared, and then I've got 10x, and I'm going to subtract 3x. So it's going to be plus 7x plus 10, and now it's equal to 0. So now I'm going to be able to go and factorize that, and then I can solve for x. Okay, so I have two sets of brackets equal to 0. Then I've got x in each of those. Now I'm looking for the factors of 10. So I've got 1 times 10, and I've got 2 times 5. The pair that I'm going to choose is the pair that I can add to get 7. So that's going to be the 2 and the 5. So I have 2 in one bracket and 5 in the other bracket. Then this one is a plus over here. That means that my signs are going to be the same, and they're both going to be the same as the sign of the middle term. So that's going to be a plus and another plus. Okay, so now I've got x plus 2 and x plus 5. Those are the factors that I'm multiplying together to get 0. So now I can say, therefore, x plus 2 must be equal to 0, or x plus 5 must be equal to 0 in order for me to be able to multiply this together and get 0. Okay, so now I can go and solve for x. So therefore, x is equal to -2 or x is equal to -5. Okay, so that's what we should have got for question D. Let's go on to question E. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. Right, so over here I've got 2x squared minus 4x minus 48 equal to 0. So it's already all on one side equal to 0 on the other side. And it's already in the form of a trinomial. The only thing that I have to do first is I have to sort out this. I've got 2x squared. And like I said before, we haven't learned yet how to factorize a trinomial. We've got a coefficient of x squared. But if you look, I've got 4 over here and I've got 48 over here. So 2 is actually a common factor. I can divide all of those by 2 and then I won't have the 2 over here anymore. Now because the common factor does not include x, what I can do, because it's an equation, is I can just divide every single term in this equation by 2 and I can just cancel it out. I don't need to worry about writing it outside brackets and then putting what's left over inside brackets. Because it's an equation, I can just divide every term by 2 and cancel it out. Remember, you can't do that. If the common factor includes an x, you have to write down the x as part of the common factor. But when it's just a number, then you can just divide through by it. So I'm going to divide every term in this equation by 2 to cancel out the 2's. So I've got x squared, 2x squared divided by 2 is x squared. Then negative 4x divided by 2 is negative 2x. Negative 48 divided by 2 is negative 24 equals 0 divided by 2 stays 0. Okay, so if the common factor had an x in it, I would have to write that common factor and then put what's left over in brackets, because I wouldn't know what x is, and x could be 0 and you can't divide by 0. But because I know what 2 is and I know that 2 isn't 0, I can divide by it and I can get rid of it. Okay, so now I've got my trinomial that I'm now going to go and factorize. So I'm going to open 2 sets of brackets. That's equal to 0. I've got x in each. And now we're looking for the factors of 24 that we can subtract to get 2. So the factors of 24 are going to be 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. The pair that I can subtract to get 2 is going to be the 4 and the 6. So I'm going to have 4 in one bracket and 6 in the other bracket. Now my signs are going to be opposite signs because I have a minus over here. the bigger number, which is the 6, is going to get the sign of the middle term. So that's the minus over there. So that's going to be minus 6, and then the other bracket is going to get a plus. Okay, now we can go and take each of those factors and make them equal to 0. So therefore, x plus 4 must be equal to 0, or x minus 6 must be equal to 0 in order for me to be able to multiply those two factors together and end up with 0 over here. Okay, so now I can go and solve for x. So therefore, x is equal to negative 4 in this equation, or x is equal to 6 in that equation. So that's what you should have got for question E, that x is negative 4 or x is 6. Right, let's go on to question F, the last one for today. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to solve this equation as well. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. Right, so over here, I've got x plus 3 in brackets squared equal to 12x. So the first thing I need to do is multiply out these brackets, and then I need to get everything on one side equal to 0. So over here, x plus 3 squared, remember when we square a bracket, we square the first term, we square the last term, so that's going to be plus 9, and then for the middle term, we multiply them together and we double it. So x times 3 is 3x, and we double that, it gives me 6x, and it's going to be positive. So it's going to be plus 6x. So I have x squared plus 6x plus 9 equal to 12x. Now I need to get everything on one side equal to 0. So I'm going to keep everything on the left. So I've got x squared. Then I've got 6x, and I'm going to subtract 12x. That gives me minus 6x. Plus 9 equals 0. So now I've got my trinomial on the one side equal to 0. So now I can go and factorize that trinomial. So the first term in each bracket is going to be x. Then I'm going to look for the factors of 9 that I can add to get 6. So the factors of 9 are 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. The pair I'm going to be choosing is the 3 times 3 because I can add those to get 6. So I've got 3 over here and 3 over here. Now because this is a plus, the two signs are going to be the same, and they're both going to take the sign of that middle term. So they're both going to be minuses over here. So I've got x minus 3 times x minus 3. Now I could, from here, go and solve my equation, but I'm actually going to say, because these two brackets are the same as each other, I'm going to combine it. I'm going to say it is x minus 3 squared equal to 0. Now the reason I'm doing that is because with those two brackets being the same, I don't need to make the two brackets equal to 0 separately because they're the same as each other and they're going to give me the same result as each other. So I only need to do it once. Okay, so when I write it like this, it makes it clear that I only need to do it once. Okay, so now I can say, therefore, x minus 3 equals 0, and now I can go and solve for x. So therefore, x is equal to 3. So with quadratic equations, normally you will get 2 solutions. But if you end up with a bracket squared like this, you will actually only have 1 solution for x. Okay, and that's how we solve that equation. So that's what you should have got for question F. And that's how we solve quadratic equations that involve trinomials. Now that we've learned the concepts in this lesson, it's important to practice, practice, practice. If you haven't already got the worksheet that goes with this video, you can find it by clicking on the link in the description below. The worksheet comes with an extra exercise full of questions for you to work on to master the concepts covered in this lesson. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button so that others can benefit from it too. Also, be sure to subscribe so that you can easily find my other lessons, and hit the bell so that you will get notified about lessons as I upload them.